This training video will give you an overview of the robotic process automation, execution tracking, and logging, as well as show you a hands-on demonstration on how to use Elasticsearch and Kibana to monitor and report on RPA activities. As individual robots carry out jobs, they generate log messages about the execution. Logs are stored locally, but are also sent to Orchestrator where they are aggregated, enhanced with additional information, and sent to permanent storage. A typical log message contains information about the time a job or activity has started or ended, its duration, which robot performed it, and other custom information set by the RPA developer. Depending on the configuration you have chosen, the permanent storage options are the Orchestrator SQL Server database in the Logs table and/or the Elasticsearch database, which is a NoSQL distributed database and search engine that allows querying large volumes of data. In the Elasticsearch database, all the log messages are stored in collections called indexes. Now, let's briefly describe what types of logs are generated by robots during their activities. There are two types of log messages depending on what is triggering the generation of a message. Default logs are systematically generated by the robot every time a process starts, when it ends, and when a process encounters an unhandled error. Additionally, if the robot is consuming items from a work queue, log messages are generated at the start and end of the transaction. What is important about the default logs is that they do not require the RPA developer to include specific logging instructions and that they have a very specific format. User logs are, in contrast, generated only if the workflow contains specific activities like log message. They depend on the specific process at hand and can be used for a more precise tracking of the jobs. The following training video focuses on the default logs, as they are a good way to start monitoring your processes in a standardized way, which should not depend on the specific process. To see a more specific example, I'm going to open the Kibana Discover tab, insert a query to select only the execution end logs. First of all, I'll select the time frame for our query, so let's select today. Now, I will insert execution ended in the query field, hit enter, and here are all the execution-ended logs that have been generated today. I'm going to expand one of the messages and expose all the fields in it. You can see process name, robot name, total execution time in seconds, and so on. Here is an overview of the Elasticsearch Kibana architecture. Elasticsearch is the database and search engine, while Kibana is the visualization layer that allows you to view and aggregate logs in a graphical way. Logs are stored in Elasticsearch in indexes, which can easily be defined as collections of messages that share common characteristics. UIPath creates a new index at the beginning of each month for each tenant. In the example, we have the logs for the default tenant for January and February 2018, and one log for January 2018 for the Fantastic tenant. The index naming is very standardized. It is always the name of the tenant dash the year dot the number of the month. When you search for specific logs in Elasticsearch, you might want to retrieve logs from different months and different tenants. To do that, Kibana uses index patterns that use the wildcard characters to narrow down the scope of the search. In this example, using the default ** pattern will retrieve data from both the January and February index for the default tenant. Now, I'm going to